Hi guys. Sorry we're a little bit late. There were some technical difficulties. Hopefully it's now working. There was some, yeah, I'm not sure why it wasn't working before, but just give me a quick thumbs up or a hello or something if you can hear me and you can see me, and we can get the show on the road. Happy Sunday. Good. Okay, glad it's working. How is everybody today? Where are you guys joining from? I feel like there's always a little bit of a delay. I feel like there's more of a delay than normal today. Yeah, I'll go ahead and share the screen and see if this works. So hopefully you guys are now looking at the PowerPoint. Yeah, so the plan today, I think it's going to take around 50 minutes to go through. So we're looking at hormones and the endocrine system. So looking at hormones and how they work in the body and how they control various different mechanisms. So I just want to sorry, just bear with me for like 10 seconds. I just want to open up a different view so I can see what's going on a bit better. Okay, perfect. Yeah, so let's jump in. So a little bit about me. My name's Alex. I'm the head of biology here at SnapProvise. I've been teaching and tutoring biology for the last 6 years now. Mostly do the A-level sessions, but I'm going to now be doing the GCSE sessions, and we're starting them back up again. I think there's been a bit of a gap where we haven't done any, but they are back up and running for the next like continuing over the summer. So yeah, what we're going to look at today is some of the principles of hormonal communication. We can identify some of the major glands in the human body. So glands is the things that release the hormones. And then we're going to look at negative feedback as a mechanism for controlling homeostasis. And we'll focus on 2 hormones in particular. We'll look at adrenaline and we'll look at thyroxine. Yeah, we're not going to look at the hormones involved in reproduction or the ones involved in puberty, and we're not going to look at blood glucose levels. But there are also these are things that are controlled by hormones, and they are in some of the specs for GCSE. So it's something you might have learned about. So these are the spec points. This is the AQA one. You guys should all hopefully have a copy of your syllabus. So this shouldn't be new to you. If you don't have one, do download one. It's super useful. It tells you exactly what you need to know for your exams. I know GCSE exams, you've already had paper 1. So there's only one more exam to go. But yeah, you need to be familiar with these. So that's the AQA one. That's the OCR one. EdXL. Yeah, and that's the 3 ones. If you're doing international A levels, this actually still is relevant, but we just don't have the specs on that at the moment. So first question, what is homeostasis? How would you define this? And yeah, if this is your first session, The idea is to make this as interactive as possible. So I'm going to throw out questions a lot for you guys to answer, essentially. So yeah, please do join in. You'll get more out of the session if you're engaging with it and trying to answer them, because I can look at your answers and see if there's any misconceptions. And to be fair, there's not very many of you guys here today, so I can actually probably see all of your answers and actually look at them. Normally, there's way too many people to do that, but today should be possible. Joining from Pakistan. Nice. Yeah, I'm very good, thanks. Yeah, nice. Saba, yeah, I agree with that. Khadija, exactly. So the maintenance of an internal environment, yeah. Maintenance of a constant, yeah. So you guys are kind of use like similar wording, and that's, yeah, I'd agree with that. That's good. So I was going to say regulation, but let's go with maintenance. It's kind of the same idea. The maintenance of a stable, or you can say consistent internal environment. Nice. Why do we need to do that? Any ideas? Or what do we need to maintain? Could phrase it like that instead. So some of the things you could talk about, temperature. So thermoregulation is quite an important one. We maintain the pH of the blood. We maintain blood glucose. And that's controlled by insulin, which you might have come across. Yeah, what else? I don't know. Water potential come up at GCSE? Possibly. That might be more into A level. So water potential of the blood. No, I guess you guys talk about osmosis. You do talk a little bit about water potential. Yeah, these are probably some of the main ones you could talk about. And the reasons that we do it are to, yeah, a lot of it's to do with enzymes. So we need enzymes to work properly. And they actually have quite a narrow range of conditions they tend to work best at. So they're quite fussy. They work best at a certain temperature and a certain pH. So we've got to maintain that to make sure that they're functioning correctly. So it helps to keep us alive, essentially. So to maintain optimum conditions, for enzymes. You say something like that. Cool. So yeah, let's go through. So how do you define a hormone? What actually is it? No one sure? Yeah, nice, Camilla. Chemicals have a specific regulatory effect on certain organs or cells in the body. Yeah, happy with that answer. Sounds good. If anything, that might be more detail than you need for GCSE. It's not a bad thing. You certainly get marks for that. You can kind of simplify that for GCSE. All you have to say is that they are chemical messengers. Messages or messengers. Let's go for messengers. And they travel via the bloodstream. So travel via the bloodstream. They tend to be made of protein. That's the most common type, but you also have ones which are made of lipid. These are sometimes also known as steroid hormones. So some examples of each, like protein ones, this is adrenaline, insulin, glucagon, all those sort of ones. The lipid ones, these tend to be the sex hormones. So testosterone, estrogen, they are both examples of lipid-based hormones. They have a slightly different way of working, but you don't tend to look at that at GCSE. That's more A-level stuff. So the way they work, they are secreted from a gland. So this is a cell in a gland, and it's secreting the hormones. So it secretes them into the blood.
Sorry, I'm having trouble understanding right now.
Alexa,
Please try
stop.
later.
That happens quite often. Need to unplug them during lessons. So it secretes into the blood. Then they travel via the blood to a target cell. So this would be the target cell. So they bind to receptors on the target cell. So the target cell could be anywhere in the body. Hormones travel around the whole body by the bloodstream. So whichever cell has receptors for that particular hormone, that will be the target cell. So if it was adrenaline, it could be the cells in the liver, which will be targeted, and they will start to release more glucose because you need more glucose if you're in the fight or flight response, which we can look at a little bit later. So that'd be one example, but there's lots of different examples in the body of glands and receptors. So let's go through and see if you guys can recognize any of these endocrine glands. So I'll number them to make it easier to identify them. So if you know any, shout them out. I'll give you guys a few seconds to see if you know any. Yeah, otherwise I'll fill them in. But let's see if you guys can get some of them. Maybe all of them. Nice. Yeah. So this one's the pituitary gland. Perfect. Thyroid. Pancreas. Yeah, nice. Number 3. Perfect. Ovaries and testes. Nice. Then there's one more. Anyone got these ones? They're like situated on top of the kidneys. They kind of look like two little hats on top of the kidneys. Yeah. Adrenal glands. Nice. So these all secrete different hormones. Some of them you might have heard of, like the pituitary gland actually does a whole bunch of different functions, but one of them is ADH, involved with osmoregulation. Pancreas, you probably heard of insulin. Testes, testosterone, ovaries, estrogen. Adrenal glands, obviously adrenaline. Thyroid is thyroxine, which kind of controls metabolic rates. We'll look at that in a bit more detail later on as well. So yeah, the pituitary gland. This is also known as the master gland. Put it in like inverted commas because it's not very scientific, but yeah, this one actually regulates a whole bunch of other glands, and it's kind of like a link between the nervous system and the endocrine system. So these are two different ways of controlling the body. Nervous system tends to be like direct, targeted, quick responses. Hormones tend to be slower, more wide-reaching, and longer lasting effects. But the pituitary gland is where the two meet together. So it's controlled by the nervous system, but it releases endocrine, releases hormones. So what should we put? Links, nervous. Links nervous system with endocrine system. And activates other glands in the body. Cool. So speaking of like the two different systems, let's go through them now. So what would you put in these boxes? So method of transmission for nervous control versus hormonal control. What could we say? Or to be honest, you could do any of them. So maybe I'll number them again. Make it easier to do. So I think we've got some of these. Yeah. So it's using nerve cells, nice. And it's actually electrical impulses. Electrical impulses along nerves. Yeah, nice. So these are hormones or like chemical messages. Chemical or chemicals in the bloodstream. Let's go for that. Nice. And then what about the speed and the duration? What could you say for these? Yeah, nice. So these tend to be rapid response, and these are slower. And these are short-lived. And these are longer lasting. Nice. And then areas targeted. What do we say for those ones? Yeah, nice, exactly. So these are targeted, or like a precise area. And these are more widespread. There's a word you might have come across, like systemic, sometimes gets used here. But if you haven't heard it, I wouldn't worry too much about it. You can just say widespread is fine, or non-targeted, because they go to the whole body. So all you're doing is putting chemicals in the bloodstream, and they're going to travel to everywhere in the body. So it's not targeted. That's another main difference. Okay, so how are you guys feeling so far? Following along, hopefully. And let's try some exam questions to check. So what are we thinking for this one? Just a multiple choice question to start off with. Feeling good? Nice. Glad to hear. So you're going for B. Anyone else got a different answer? Will you agree? Sumaya is saying A. Yeah. It is actually B. So secretes hormones that increase the storage of glycogen in the liver. This is actually insulin. And this gets released by the pancreas. So it's not that. So you might not necessarily know if it does all these other things, but you hopefully recognize that this one is insulin, and that's produced by the pancreas. Therefore, it's not a feature of the pituitary gland. Often with multiple choice questions, you might not know exactly which one it is. So you always use process elimination to rule some out. So if you know that some aren't relevant, you can like kind of cross those out. And if you then select a guess between two, at least your chances are like vastly improved if you're just guessing between two versus guessing between four. So always try and rule out any ones that you're not sure on. Oh, sorry, any ones that you think are like not correct. Okay, so we just looked at this before, but it's sort of typical sort of question they could ask you. So what is a hormone for 3 marks, which actually seems like quite a lot of marks for this question. But yeah, you would structure your answer differently, whether it was a 1, 2, or 3 marker. And we'll go through that once we've actually got all 3 of the marking points. But make sure you're putting, for a 3-mark question, you need 3 distinct marking points. So 3 separate things. So what can you say? Mm-hmm. Nice. So yes, so there's 4 possible marks. Chemical messenger, released by a gland, released into the bloodstream, and you could also say acts on a target cell. So they're the 4 possible marking points. So you obviously don't get 4 marks, you only get 3, but you could get any of those 4 to get 3 marks. If it was a 1-mark question, I would go with this one. If it was a 2 marker, I would probably go with this one and this one. And a 3 marker, add in this. And I've never seen a 4 mark question for what was a hormone, but you could add that for a 4th mark potentially as well. Okay, so let's go through some specific examples and let's look at negative feedback. So we'll look at adrenaline. So adrenaline is produced in the adrenal glands. And these are located on the kidney. What does adrenaline actually trigger? What's the name of the effect that the release of adrenaline will cause? Nice, yeah. The fight or flight response. Nice. And so what are some of the effects of this? There's quite a few things we could talk about. If you're not sure, think about when you've had an adrenaline rush. So this could be, you get them from like going on a roller coaster, from being in a stressful situation, getting a shock, a surprise. This will all cause the release of adrenaline and it will trigger the fight or flight response. Yeah, so probably the most famous example is the increased heart rate. We do this because we want to increase blood glucose. Oh, sorry, not so much blood glucose. Let's just put increase glucose plus oxygen supply to the body. Mostly it's to the muscles, but to the brain as well. So if you're in a potentially dangerous situation, that's why we have this response to deal with dangerous situations. So if in this dangerous situation, you need to be able to like think quickly, and potentially you need your muscles to be ready to either fight off an attacker or like a predator or run away. So yeah, we do this to a lot of arrows here to increase brain activity plus muscle. What should we put? Let's put muscle activity as well. Yeah, dilating pupils as well. That's another classic symptom. So this is so you can see better, so you can take in what's going on. And often people, I think I've most heard of this when people are like in a car crash or something. So well, you realize something's gone wrong, and people often say it feels like time slows down, and this is because of the adrenaline. So it's like pumping you up, your eyes get bigger, your brain starts working faster, so it does actually feel like time is slowing. And this is all to help you respond better to this situation, which always seems like, why don't we do this all the time? If we're in a better state to cope with things, why don't we do this all the time? Because it's not really sustainable to keep your body in this heightened state of alertness for a prolonged period. So it can only be done for relatively short bursts. Cool. So thyroxine is another hormone that we talk about quite often. Yeah, have a good one. Bye-bye. So thyroxine is produced in the thyroid gland, which is located in your sort of just below your neck, kind of in the very top of your chest. You can't really see it that much, but it's located there. You can feel it sometimes if you get an infection. It's also involved with the lymphatic system. So it can swell up and become quite uncomfortable when you're ill. So you might have felt it then, but you can't really Can't really see it that much. Yeah, its job is to control metabolic rates in the body. So this is stuff like regulating respiration and protein synthesis in the body. Like many homeostatic mechanisms, this is controlled via negative feedback. By negative feedback. Cool. So let's look at negative feedback in a little bit more detail. So this is a typical shape graph you'll get for negative feedback. You have this fluctuating line. It's sometimes known as a dynamic equilibrium. You don't necessarily need that keyword. Maybe for A level, you would need it. For GCSE, it's optional if you wanted to talk about it like that. The main idea is that it's like fluctuating. So there's an optimal level for any of these conditions. That's where the body is trying to maintain it. But it tends to fluctuate around that optimal level. So what you have is, sort of the definition for negative feedback is there's an optimal level. Any deviation from the optimal level will trigger a response that returns conditions to the norm. So let's go through A, B, and C here. So this is a deviation from the norm. From the norm. This triggers a response. That returns conditions to the norm. So for example, you get too hot, the body detects this, so it brings about responses that cool you down. So this could be like sweating, vasodilation of the capillaries near the skin, that sort of thing. And after a while, your body temperature is going to start to drop and you return back to the optimum. What usually then happens is you actually overshoot and you go out the other way. It's kind of like, I don't know if you guys ever, if you paddled a kayak, I find it feels like how they work as well. You're trying to paddle in a straight line, and because you can paddle on either side. So you're paddling what feels like in a straight line and you start to turn. So then you correct by like paddling twice on the other side. Then the kayak then like turns too far the other way. And it feels like you're forever steering in a sort of wiggly line. You're trying to go forward, but you're in a wiggly line because you're kind of overcorrecting. And that's usually what happens in homeostasis. So you get this wiggly line. You're maintaining it within a reasonably narrow band, but it's not stable. It does fluctuate. So anything this is kind of okay, but this is the optimal that we're trying to maintain it around. So let's go through an example. So this is kind of known as a negative feedback loop. You've hopefully seen them before. You might have seen them for blood glucose or for temperature. So let's do this one for temperature. So got a normal body temperature. We get too hot. So receptor detects increase in temperature. Signals to the effector that activates corrective mechanisms. So the effectors in this case would be sweat glands. And it would also be capillaries or arterioles near the skin. So you have vasodilation. And that will cause the body to cool. So temperatures decrease back down to normal. Let's say you're now getting too cold. So receptor detects decrease. in body temperature. This will lead to the effectors being stimulated. So this could be vasoconstriction, of the blood vessels near the skin, because only the ones near the skin will be the ones that cool you down. So vasoconstriction of the ones near the skin. And if that still doesn't warm you up enough, you might even get some shivering. This works because the muscle contractions generate heat and that actually helps to warm your body up. So if you're only a little bit lower than optimal body temperature, you won't start shivering. It's if you get if you continue to, your body temperature still dropping, or it's just not working to warm you up. That's when shivering will come in. But it's not the default straight away response. Just like sweating, this will only be if you're still getting hotter and the vasodilation hasn't worked by itself. So these are kind of the secondary mechanisms, which will kick in if the primary response isn't having the effect that you need. Okay, so let's go through this one as well. So we talked about thyroxine and that's produced by the thyroid gland. So, and how it regulates growth. So it's controlled by the hypothalamus communicating with the thyroid gland. So the thyroid stops making thyroxine. The hypothalamus is going to detect this. In this case, this is the coordinator. Hypothalamus detects drop in thyroxine, we could add. That then signals, the hypothalamus signals to the pituitary gland, the master gland we talked about, to release TSH. So pituitary releases TSH. So this is a thyroid stimulating hormone. This is what activates the thyroid. So it's kind of like an on switch for it. So that causes the thyroid to start producing thyroxine. Then eventually the levels are going to build up. The hypothalamus detects higher thyroxine. And then the pituitary gland stops releasing TSH. So then the thyroid is going to make less thyroxine, eventually maybe stop, and the level is going to lower. So we can go sort of through the whole cycle. So that was an up and a down, and we're back to where we started with. This could keep on going, kind of indefinitely. Cool. So how are you guys feeling with that? We've got another couple of exam questions just to test what we've looked at so far, and then we're finished. Yeah, you're very welcome. Hopefully that was helpful. 1, perfect, good. That's what I like to see. Okay, so Dickie is visiting a hospital to have his heart checked. Dickie runs to the hospital because he's worried about being late for his appointment. The doctor must wait until the level of hormone in Dickie's blood returns to normal before he checks Dickie's heart. Write down the name of this hormone. Don't know why they chose the name Dickie. I feel like that's quite an old-fashioned name. Not that common anymore. Mm-hmm. Yeah, adrenaline. And then what's the effect on his heart from this one? Mm-hmm. Increases heart rate. Yeah. Nice. Obviously, don't write like that in your actual exam. Cool. Then final question. So this is about that negative feedback loop on thyroxine. So thyroxine synthesized and secreted by the thyroid gland. Outline how negative feedback controls thyroxine levels in the body for 4 marks. So it's kind of similar to what we were doing with that negative feedback loop. So what can we say? Or to be honest, it's quite a long answer question. So please feel free to have a go, type it out. I'll start writing it as well at the same time. Otherwise, it'll be a lot of like waiting. But yeah, do have a go and I'll check your answers to make sure they're looking all right. Hypothalamus detects. Oh, sorry, I won't read it out in case you're still writing it. When levels normalize, TSH stops being released, something like that. So yeah, essentially, there's been a deviation from the norm. This is detected, in this case, by the hypothalamus, which stimulates the pituitary gland. This is the response. The response returns the conditions back to the normal level. Samaya, let's have a look at your answer. Increased thyroxine. Yeah. Yeah, nice. Be happy with that. Yeah, perfect. And yeah, that's it. So that was our lesson on hormones. So hopefully that is a bit more clear now. What or how those work and how negative feedback and the different glands work. Yeah, if you've got any questions, can hang around for a couple of minutes and answer them. If not, thanks for joining. Thanks for coming on your Sunday, especially on like a at least in London, it's super sunny and nice right now. So good to see that you guys are dedicated to your biology and you're joining in rather than being outside somewhere. And yeah, I guess if there's no questions, then yeah, hope to see you guys in one of these next month. We haven't been doing the GCSE lessons for a while, but yeah, they should be back every month from now on. So yeah, do come to one of the ones in the future, and enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Cool. Bye guys. Yeah, you're very welcome. See you later. Bye. Bye.